like people tell me all the time, girl, you need credit. Like you're a woman of business, you need credit. And I'm like,
Yeah, you do. You
can
do.
I just do a debit card? Like I just don't.
No.
So
No. Yeah, let's talk about
let's
this
talk about
because
this.
this is a very real thing that I think our community sees. I also was grown up in a I was raised in a household where, debt is evil. It's
Mm-hmm.
evil. I want to first lead with this. Rich people, the wealthy, they leverage debt.
Mm.
They use debt for everything. I'm not saying that I want you to go and start opening up all these credit cards and taking out all
Right.
these loans. No, don't. But use it smartly. That's the key. I had about $13,000 of credit card debt.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of my debt-free journey. My
Right.
law school's my student loans grew up to about $202,000. My credit cards were about 13. I paid off about $215,000 of debt. Consumer debt was real for me. It was very easy for me to swipe the plastic. And also a lot of it was done when I just plain and simple just couldn't afford
Right.
certain things when I was in law school. And since becoming credit card debt free, which was in, I think probably like late 2016 or so, around there, since then, I have not paid a dime in interest to any credit card companies.
Mm.
I have 7 credit cards. I have not had any credit card debt.
Welcome to Growing Up Latina. I am super excited about today's guest. I mean, listen, every episode it's for y'all, but this time, this is for me. This one's for me. I want to give a warm welcome to Cindy Zuniga Sanchez.
Thank you.
Oh my God, I'm so hyped, girl.
Me too.
Like
I'm excited.
I told you offline, like I have real questions.
Yeah.
We may go a little bit over time, but
No,
ija.
that's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
Let's do it.
So you are the founder of Zero-Based Budget.
Yes.
We're going to start from the beginning, but before we get there,
Yes.
tell me, what is Zero-Based Budget?
Yes. So Zero-Based Budget is my personal finance coaching business where I really educate millennial women, specifically millennial women of color, on how to become financially free. It's my project, it's my passion project, and it's something that was born out of me tackling over $200,000 of debt on my own and realizing that there is a need in our community for relatable personal finance information, advice, education, tips, and to do it in a way that is fun too.
Mm-hmm.
That's my mission, and so it's my baby.
Let's take it from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so where were you born?
So I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York,
Okay.
to immigrant parents. My father's from Honduras. My mom is from Ecuador. And, I have a very typical daughter of immigrant story. I, was raised in a very low income community in the Bronx. And my parents did everything that they could to provide for us. And often that meant just making sure that food was on the table,
Mm-hmm.
and I carry a lot of Bronx pride with me because it is a huge part of my identity. It made me who I am. It instilled grit, a lot of street smart,
Right.
but also a lot of passion. I think there's a lot of passion in our community, and it's definitely something that from when I was a little girl, I've just had it, and I have a lot of pride anytime anyone asks me where I'm from. I'm like, from the BX,
Bronx.
the BX.
So I'm glad you bring that up because I'm from the Bronx. Right?
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I live in Pelham Parkway.
Okay, yeah.
And it's been like the biggest debate, right?
Yeah.
Because me and my friend, we're always talking about the Bronx. She loves the Bronx, right? And I'm always like, I want to get out of the Bronx.
Yeah.
Right? So it's that battle of like, I love the Bronx.
Yeah.
But I have the mentality like, what else is there? Right? So I think for me, I'm just like, okay, whatever I do, I got to find a way out. It's always like geared towards, I need out.
Yeah.
But for you, like you did everything in the Bronx. You just told me you recently moved.
Yeah. I did. After graduating from college, I moved back home for my first year of law school, and then I moved to Harlem. And I lived in
Mm-hmm.
Harlem for a few years. And
Okay.
then I moved back to the Bronx with my husband, who's also from the Bronx.
Okay.
And, we lived there for a few years, and it was great. But I wanted to do something different.
Okay.
I wanted to live somewhere different for
Stand
at
out.
least a bit
Mm-hmm.
because my long term is I do want to buy in the Bronx. I do want to
Mm.
settle down in the Bronx. It's my home,
I love
but I don't want to buy property right now.
Okay.
So right now I was like, let's just experiment a little bit. Let's like live somewhere else for some time, and then when it comes time to buy either a house or an apartment or wherever, we're going to come back home because home
Right.
is home.
Right.
My parents have been living in the Bronx for over 50 years,
Love that.
and it's their home too. And it's, but I did want to try something a little different. So I
Right.
very, very recently moved to Jersey City, which is funny because it's like right across the river. Like when people
Yeah.
ask me sometimes like, oh my gosh, how long was your commute? I'm like, not long at all.
No.
Like it was actually really quick,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just really a stop away on the train. But it is something that I think what I see a lot, especially for those of us that are born and raised in the Bronx, is this desire of more,
Mm-hmm.
of more. And sometimes I think a lot of us carry this, well, I want to know what else is out there. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's okay.
Okay.
I like
Because
that.
I always kind of felt guilty for saying that.
Yeah,
Like, oh,
no,
why do I?
no,
Because I don't dislike the Bronx.
no.
And even whenever I travel,
Right.
there's only certain things that you can get in the Bronx. Like, I will
Yeah.
always get my nails done
Yeah.
in the Bronx. Always. My hair in the Bronx.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
just certain things where
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I'll move, but
Yeah.
I'll still go to the Bronx for
Yeah,
this.
well, because it's always going to be your home,
Mm-hmm.
right? Maybe it might not be your place of residence
Right.
forever, but that's okay. I think it's good to experiment. I have had friends that have moved out to the West Coast. They moved out to Chicago, to Florida, to Texas, to other parts, and I think that's fine. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't.
Right.
But I think life is all about trying new things. I think especially with what's happened with the pandemic, it's like, why not? Why
Right.
not? And if there is something that calls you out and says, why don't you just try this? Then go for it. But if there is something that, you want to do within your community, for your community, then by all means stay and
Same.
do it and get the work done. But I say no matter what, carry that pride with you and never neglect your community or think that you're too good for your community.
True.
That's something that I
Now,
think is
it's
big.
key.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
key. Now, for me, living in the Bronx and like me trying to like dibble and dabble to like
Mhm.
other areas, like for me, I always want to go to like New Rochelle or like
Mhm.
Westchester.
Mhm.
And my mother tells me, Mija, stay in the Bronx. Your rent over there will
Ooh.
be skyrocket high
Yeah.
and forget about it.
Yeah.
And then I'm always like, but why do I have to stay comfortable?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, why?
Yeah.
I almost feel like I'm limiting the amount of money I'm making just to stay in the Bronx because
Yeah.
as long as I know I'm making that rent,
You know
then
you're
I'm
okay.
good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But maybe if I moved out of the Bronx where
Yeah.
rent is like a little bit more,
Yeah.
then my hustle will then become like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, my rent in Jersey City is more than it was in the
oh,
Bronx,
1,000%.
Yeah, it is. But for me, it's just exposed me to something different. It's a different location. It's a different group of people. Of course, there are things that I miss from back home. I used to live right in the Arthur Avenue area, and I will die on this hill. There is no better Italian food than there
You're
is on
so
Arthur
right.
Avenue.
You're so right
Period.
about that.
Like when people ask me like, "Oh, are you going to Little Italy?" and they're referring to Soho, and I'm like, "You mean in the Bronx?"
In the Bronx.
Because that's
And
Little Italy.
It's so cute in
Yeah.
the Bronx.
Yeah.
There's so many cute spots in the
Yeah.
Little Italy in the Bronx.
Yeah.
Is everything.
It's perfect. And it's such good food, and the people and everything is all great and stuff. But yeah, now I live in another area and I've had to adapt, of course, because it's different. But it's been nice, It's
Yeah.
been nice and
What are
I'm
the people
enjoying
like over there?
quiet.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, quiet, quiet.
Okay.
I will say it's very quiet in the area where I live in specifically. It's a lot of like young families.
Mm-hmm.
From what I've been told, what happens a lot of times is, people will live in New York City like in their 20s, early 30s. Then they get married and they move to Jersey City because it's not quite Manhattan or
Right.
the Bronx or Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little more out there, and they'll start their families there, or
There.
like having children, I mean. And then their kids get a little bigger, and then they move out into the suburbs.
Right.
So it's kind of like a three-step process. The suburbs are not for me. I need to live in a walkable city,
Yeah.
hands down.
So you
Like,
don't drive.
no. So I have been driving since I was 16, 17 years old.
Okay.
I had a car for 7 years, because
Okay.
when I went out to college, I had a car all those years. But I really dislike driving.
Really?
I don't like driving. I do it, but I
Okay.
don't like it.
Okay.
And I love what, people call urban hiking. I love walking. I
Yeah.
love walking. I love walking. I love being a tourist in my own city. It's fun for me, and I need to live in a walkable area. And that leads me with very, very few places, sadly, that I would
Right.
really be able to. Like I went to Los Angeles last year, and I had to rent a car.
Oh, 1000%.
I
You
had
cannot
to,
take.
and I was so
There's no
mad.
walking anywhere in LA.
I was so mad. I
Yeah.
was like, I don't want to. And then my husband, my husband doesn't drive. He doesn't have a
Okay.
license. Like he's a
No.
very typical New
New
York
York.
City
Yes.
kind of kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were out there, and like we wound up like on Google, like, oh, that's a 10-minute walk. Like that's
That's it.
fine. Why are we on the highway?
No, you are
Why are
not
we on
walking
the side
on
of
the
a
highway.
freeway?
Oh my
Having to
God.
walk with him like back in like behind me. Like, why
What?
are we doing this? Like, what is going
You
on?
guys
And
probably looked insane. People were
we
probably
looked
driving like, what are
crazy.
these people doing?
We looked ridiculous, and it's
Like, why
like,
are we doing this?
so we need to live in a walkable city. That's like one of our big
Okay.
criterias. But yeah, so that's a long way of saying, I recently moved from the Bronx to Jersey City. The Bronx will always have my heart, and it is where eventually long term, where I do see myself like settling down, if you will.
Okay,
Yeah.
so elementary, where were
Yeah.
you? What
Yeah.
school did you go? Was it in
Yeah.
the Bronx? Was it in Harlem?
Yeah, it was in the Bronx.
In the Bronx, okay.
I went to Blessed Sacrament, which is the elementary school that Justice Sotomayor went to.
Yes.
I also went to her high school as well, which was Cardinal
Nice.
Spellman High School. And yeah, my elementary school was just a few blocks from where I grew up, and it was Catholic. And I
Okay.
point that out because receiving as best of an education as I could was something that my parents were very passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And what that meant was they had to side hustle. They had to side hustle in order to afford the Catholic school tuition that they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to put me in, because the public schools, they weren't as good as they should be. Period. And
That's
it's
a
a
fact.
sad reality. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's a topic that people are like, ooh, let's not even go there. And it's like, no, let's
Yeah, let's
because
go there.
our kids deserve better. And unfortunately, at the time in the early 90s, it just wasn't, the nearby school wasn't going to be the best fit. And my parents, yeah, they put me in elementary school. So I think from the time that I was a little girl, I really saw the value of an education. Like it was
Right.
ingrained in me, an education would be the way out of poverty. That's what I
That
understood to
part.
be true.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had one job then. I had one job, which was to be a good student. And that's what I did. And that's what I committed to myself. I was like the valedictorian of my 8th grade class, for like elementary school. And for me, that was like the bare minimum.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's like, I need to do this. It wasn't even like, oh, wow, good job, Cindy. Like, here's a reward, or like, here's like allowance. My
Right.
mom would be like, allowance? Like,
Like, what is that?
what is
Yeah,
that?
so-
Like, yes, okay. So,
So you
But yeah.
genuinely
Yeah.
loved school.
oh, I was a nerd.
You was a nerd.
Total nerd.
Okay.
Total nerd.
So you
Loved
were like the
school.
one that I would sit next to, like, hey, girl.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And I
that's
would be
amazing,
I would be
though.
the one that'd be like, we can talk later too. Like I
Yeah.
can help you like after
You were
class.
that
like,
girl.
Like
I
let's do
love.
it.
Can I
Like,
tell you,
yeah.
I love people that can do that.
Yeah.
Like you were the helper. Like you're like, hey, let's take a little bit of time after school. Let's figure it out for you.
I think looking back on it, I think that's where my love of teaching really started, is knowing that I can, in small ways, I can help. If I can
I
help you
love
with
that.
fractions, I can help you with fractions now. That's not my ministry, okay? It's not.
Not
But
now.
but
Right.
back then, and I think that, yeah, I mean, when I was just thinking about, from when I was a little girl, I wasn't super athletic.
Mm-hmm.
Did not have those skills.
Okay, so not
I
gym class.
wasn't,
Gym class wasn't your thing.
nah, not
No.
really, not really.
Okay.
I loved it. I
Okay.
loved it. I was a tomboy when I was little. I
Okay.
loved, I mean, like even how I dressed, like everything. I wasn't like super girly or anything like that. But yeah, the athletics wasn't for me. I wasn't musically inclined,
Right.
nothing like that. But I was really good at school. You
But
know,
what was your favorite subject?
I think from when I was little, the sciences were always my
Mm.
thing. That was
Okay.
always my thing. Science was hands down my subject, and I actually got like a small scholarship for science when I was in the 8th grade for like going to high school because of just how dedicated I was to it.
That's
And
so dope. I
yeah, I
love
was a
that.
science nerd. Like I took like physics in high school. I took calculus, all of that. Meanwhile, my husband was like, I'm gonna take religion class
Yeah.
and English and social
That was my
studies.
thing. Social studies in
Yeah,
English.
that was my husband's thing. Social studies, English,
Oh my God.
all those other classes. And I say my husband because we are high school sweethearts.
I
So yeah,
know. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
How was even that like just dating in high school? And
Well,
that's a lot of commitment, first of all.
yeah, it is a
Like,
lot of commitment.
yeah.
I will say, especially if my parents see this interview, right? I wasn't allowed to date. Like, it's not like, when I was in
So you were
elementary
keeping it
school,
a secret.
I did for a couple years.
Okay,
I did.
okay.
I did. I
Okay.
really did.
Okay.
When I was in elementary school, like I said, I was kind of like very tomboyish. I was very, very much a nerd. I didn't
Mhm.
have boyfriends. I didn't have boyfriends. I didn't really have, I had like some crushes, but like I wasn't boy crazy ever. I was
Right.
very just like studious. Like again, like what I said earlier, I had one job,
Right.
which was to get good grades
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to then get into a really good high school. And then I was able to get into that really good high school. I got into Cardinal Spellman High School in the Bronx,
Amazing.
which is
Amazing.
a great school. It's a co-ed school.
Yes.
My dad wanted me to go to an all-girls Catholic school, and I was like,
No,
I'll
papi, no.
apply. I applied
Oh, you
just
did?
to
Just to make it
satisfy
okay.
his heart. But
But you knew in the back of your
no,
mind,
I was
I'm
like,
not doing
not
that.
a chance in hell. Like,
I'm not doing that.
not a chance.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I got to high school and I was still definitely very much like nerdy.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't test into, for some reason, I didn't test into the honors classes. I was in the regular classes
Really?
and I was like, cool, like, this is fine. But then after my first year, my grades were really quite high. So I got into all the honors classes. And that's when I met my husband
Mm.
because my my husband was in all the honors classes, and it's funny because when I saw him the
Uh-huh.
first time, I was like, hmm. Hello. He's
Yeah.
cute. But again, like my school is still like very much trying to like, may the Holy Spirit be between the both of you, like
Right.
that kind of thing. Like
Right,
my school
right.
is very like that. But yeah, it is really quite funny. But yeah, people actually laugh because I tell them that in high school is when I realized that the guy I would fall in love with was actually smarter than me.
Wait,
Yeah.
hold on. Rewind. Did
Yeah.
you know, like, when you met him, like, this is the guy for me? Like, this is it? Because that's like a really young age. And mommy always tell me, oh, girl, you're not,
Yeah.
that's not, you're going to go through a few of them. And I'm like, no, I don't want to.
I saw him and I knew he was special. I didn't know why.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that at 15 I really knew what like love felt like, but
Right.
I was as close to that as possible.
Mhm.
But we were actually just friends for the first 2 years. Like our
Okay.
sophomore and junior year of high school, we were genuinely just friends, like purely platonic relationship.
Right.
I was jealous of him sometimes because he would
Really?
get better grades than I would. Yeah,
So
he
you're
would.
competitive.
Yeah, I mean, of
She's like,
course.
yeah.
Claro que sí. Like, of course. Of course. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I got a 95. And he's like, oh, I got 100. And I'm like,
Bien nonchalant. I got
I'm
100.
like, but like I studied for like
Aw.
3 weeks and you literally just studied before the period, like the class
Aw.
period. And like, there are different kind of smart people.
Right.
I always tell people, like, I studied. Like,
Right.
I'm not, like, just naturally intelligent. No, no, no.
Like, you
I
had to work.
studied.
Right.
Oh, yeah. My
Mhm.
husband's very different. My
He's just
husband's
like,
just very naturally intelligent, which is great. But, I mean,
you know he's listening to this interview, by the
Oh,
way.
I know. He's going to get a kick out of it. He's going to be like, really? You said that? Yeah, I'm like, yeah, because it's true. I felt like that. At 15, I felt like that.
I feel like you low-key still feel this way.
Listen, let's not get into the fact that he got into NYU and I didn't.
Ooh.
Let's not go there. We don't need to go there.
No, let's not
we
go
don't need to
there.
go there.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right. So would you guys study together?
No.
No.
No,
Okay,
not
so
at
not
all,
even
ever.
that.
No,
Okay.
we were totally different.
Okay.
I was like the books, like a plan, strategy, notes, here, this, there, going to the teacher's office to ask questions. John was just like,
He would wake up.
everything
I woke
just
up
hit.
like this. Yeah.
And I'd be like,
Yeah.
before the exam, I'd be like, so like, how do you feel? Did you prepare? And he's like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I woke up today and I'm gonna ace it.
why am I the one that's panicking? But anyways, it is funny, and it's funny because I know some of our my two best girlfriends went to high school with us, and they're still my best friends, to this day. And I'm sure they'll watch this interview and they'll be like, "Yep,
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right." I remember that.
So talk to me about college now.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Well, actually, I'm gonna let you say it, and then I'm gonna insert like my little tidbit there. But talk to me about that, the process of like picking schools. For me, I was just like, oh, I don't want to do this, so I'm just gonna pick like whatever. I actually went to BMCC, and then I graduated from Lehman College.
Okay.
But you really like went through a whole process with college. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. So the college application process to me was not something super, super new because both of my sisters had gone to college.
Okay.
And,
Same college or?
No.
Okay.
My oldest sister went to Hunter College and
Love Hunter.
Yeah. And she's a teacher. The middle sister, can't remember the school that she went to, but she's a fashion designer. And she's been working in the fashion industry for like 20 years now.
Amazing.
But I was going to be the first one to leave home. That was a lot. Like, for
that's a lot.
The baby of the house to be the one that's leaving.
Was that even comfortable? Because my mom would never even let me stay over at anyone's house. So imagine
no,
like,
I never stood over anyone's house.
Mommy would be like, you have your house, your bed.
I think the first time I slept in another bed that was not mine, that was not like, vacation in Ecuador, was my college dorm. Seriously. No, seriously. And that was hard for my parents. That was really hard for my parents because it's like I'm the youngest. But I think my parents knew, I've always been very independent. And I think that they saw how trustworthy I was in elementary school and high school. I was generally like a pretty good kid. Like, I behaved. I got my good grades. I wasn't like super boy crazy or anything like that. I was a pretty good kid, I think. If I don't want to toot my own horn, but toot, right?
Like you weren't answering back to your parents or anything.
I wasn't the easiest teenager either, but
you did well, Cindy. You did well.
And I think my parents trusted that, and I think they knew that I would be okay. And when the college application process started, for me, it was really like focusing on the FAFSA, right? So the financial aid form that you have to fill out before going to college. And the financial aid form tells you how much your family can afford to put towards your degree. So it's called the EFC number.
That's right.
Right? Like the estimated familial contribution. Mine was zero. Mine was zero because my parents couldn't afford anything.
Right.
And I think that's, I think that's very real that a lot of us go through is a realization of like, oh, I'm poor. It's wow.
It's a real thing. Yeah.
And I think that really lit the fire under me to be as scholarship worthy as possible, and I made sure that I had great grades, great extracurriculars, letters of recommendation, all of that. And I applied to a bunch of colleges, a bunch of universities, some out of state too. Like I applied to the University of Miami. My parents were never going to let me to go there.
But you're like, just weigh out all options.
Why
at
not?
That point.
I applied to a whole bunch. But honestly, the ones that I really needed to look at, were the ones that would give me money. Like that was very, very important to me, and, I did get into some private universities, but they just simply were not offering enough. And so I was like, all right,
Wait, can I
Sydney.
just stop you right
Yeah.
there? The
Yeah.
fact that you knew your worth at
Yeah.
that age
Yeah.
is so amazing to me. Like, continue, but I just had to mention that
You
because I
know,
really love that.
I think for me, it wasn't. I don't think back then I really saw it as knowing my worth as it was as much of knowing my family's worth, and
Mm-hmm.
knowing what my family could take on versus what they couldn't,
Right.
and really resting on that. And I knew that going into tens of thousands or hundreds, possibly of thousands of debt in that moment would not be the best fit.
Right.
So going off of my love for science, I went to college because I wanted to be a doctor.
Right.
That's what I
Right.
wanted to do. I wanted to be a medical
But
doctor.
like what kind?
A GYN, OBGYN.
Really?
Yes,
Oh
OBGYN,
my
women's
God.
health, like
Really?
throw me into yes, that's what I wanted to
Amazing.
do. So I got accepted into Stony Brook University, which is a public university here in New York, very, very well known for their medical program.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I told my best friend, like, I got into Stony Brook. She was like, me too. I was like, so let's go. She's like, all right, cool. That's how she made her decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, that's how she made
Like,
her
we're just
decision.
gonna go together.
She's
That's
like, all
it.
right, like, yeah, let's go together, But the beautiful thing about Stony Brook was that they actually offered me a full ride, So between certain grants, like the TAP grant,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and scholarships that Stony Brook offered me, my full tuition and room and board was covered. And that
So
for me at that moment, I thought I achieved the dream. At that moment, I was like, oh, American dream, done.
right.
Got my college degree fully funded.
Mm-hmm.
I did my job. I did the job that my parents told me I had to do when I was a little girl, which was get good grades, get into a good school, and get a great career. And in
Mm-hmm.
my mind, the next step was pursuing medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I went to Stony Brook for. And then I realized that I can't see blood because it makes me sick. Like, literally. And so maybe becoming a doctor was not going to be the move for me.
You realized that when you already got there?
I realized once I was in school and I went to Stony Brook University Hospital
Oh
to get an
my
internship.
God.
And I went in hand with my resume
Uh-huh.
and I went to the hospital and you know the smell of hospitals?
Yes, yes.
Now, to be clear, my father worked in a hospital as an OR technician assistant.
My dad works at Mount Sinai Hospital right now.
My father worked
As
at
the
Montefiore.
OR.
Really?
Yes.
Get out of here.
I swear.
My dad worked at Montefiore
swear.
Hospital for like
Oh my
25 years, something like that.
That's
in the
hilarious.
OR.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Continue. I had
It's
a moment.
crazy, right? It's like,
I had a
yeah.
moment. Oh
And
my
and
God.
and it's funny because my dad had already told me that medicine was a very challenging career.
Yes.
But I was like, no, it's fine. I can do. And I thought that as long as I got good grades, that's all I needed. No, no, you
Right.
need your doctor to like be able to treat you.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I went to the hospital because I wanted to get an internship after my freshman year at Stony Brook.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked in and I walked out. I was like, I can't do this.
Like,
I started like panicking. I was like, I can't. I'm not.
Oh, like it was a real
Oh
fear.
yeah. No, I was like, I can't. I'm not cut out
Oh
for
wow.
this. And immediately I walked.
But
I
I'm
walked
sure
out.
you've seen blood as a little girl. You probably bumped into things.
It's like
Was it different
and
just
especially
there?
because I was like a tomboy. I used
Right.
to get my knees scuffed
Right.
up all the time. I mean, it was normal, like to
Just
see like
some-
blood
yeah.
dripping from my knee or my classmates or whatever. But something about being in the hospital environment,
You're like,
like knowing that could be my career. Something about that was like, God was like, this is not for you.
So then you
This is not for
detoured.
you. Oh yeah, I detoured. And I
Okay.
was like, all right, what's the next best thing that I could do? Law. Like,
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I read that you wanted to become the first Latina senator.
Yes.
That's a big role.
That's a big role. It is a big role. I started interning for then Senator Hillary Clinton.
Mhm.
This was in like 2008.
Mhm.
President Obama had just been elected, and there were the rumors that he was going to appoint her as Secretary of State. So I was like, oh, I'm so happy for her, love this for her, but hate this for me because I'm out of an internship.
Right.
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 And so they actually moved me to Senator Schumer's office.
Mhm.
And Senator Schumer is the other senator of New York.
Mhm.
And so I was, all right, cool. Yeah, throw me with Senator Schumer. And so they put me in Senator Schumer's office. And I got to work for the Senate for, almost 2 years. I worked in his office in Long Island, in New York City, and in DC. And it was a DC internship that really made me realize that there is a severe lack of representation in Congress.
Definitely.
A severe lack. And like, of course, the election of President Obama was a victory in our communities, but it wasn't enough, and the fact that there was no U.S. Latina senator, not one, not out of 50, there was not one. I was like, yeah, I could do that. I could do that, And so I said, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. Maybe government, politics is what I'm supposed to do. I mean, I got a good amount of experience in it. And, like I mentioned earlier, Justice Sotomayor went to my elementary school, my high school. I've met her on numerous occasions, like in college and law school and whatnot. And I was very inspired by her life as a public servant. And I thought maybe I can do that too, but for Congress. And so that's kind of what made me want to apply to law school.
But that's not cheap, Cindy, to go to law school. It's like a very expensive journey.
Like a house.
It's that part. It really is.
Yeah.
So what would make you say, okay, how am I going? Because you just said like your family didn't really have it. So how did you get the money to then go to law school? That part.
A lot of
I'm going to drink on that because that's
a lot of loans.
So talk about that.
So when I was in my senior year of college and I decided I'm going to go to law school, the stark reality was there are very few scholarships available at the graduate level. Like, MBA, law school, master's programs, just generally, there is a lack of scholarships. But two is that it's expensive. And that's when I had to really think about, will this investment be worth it? Will this investment in my education be worth it? And I think that because I had always thought I would go to medical school, which is also very expensive.
Very expensive.
I thought, well, law school is actually a year less than medical school. Medical school is 4 years and then some, right? Because then you have to do your specialization and whatnot. But law school is 3 years. So maybe I got a deal, right?
Right.
That's what I'm telling myself. I'm trying to justify it.
Yeah. You're talking yourself through it at this point.
I'm talking myself through it. But I think what it really was me thinking about, I don't have a choice. That's really what it
Did you really feel that? Like you really didn't have a choice?
No, I didn't feel like I had a choice. I mean, who was I going to tap down for money?
Yeah.
Who was I going to shake down?
Right.
I didn't have anyone to shake down. So I knew that the best that I could do was apply to as many scholarships as I can. Hope for the best.
Right.
And then, just be ready to take out loans. And at the time, I would say the average tuition, I'm just talking tuition. I'm not talking room and board. I'm literally just talking about like the classroom instruction.
Right.
I'm not talking about books or anything like that. Tuition alone was about $50,000 a year back then. And so for a 3-year degree, that's $150,000. And just to put into context now, just 10 years later, the average is about $70,000.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I mean, Columbia University put out their, estimate of what it would take to get a law degree. They added tuition plus like cost of living, and it's like $105,000 a year.
Wow.
So, I mean, for me, it was like, well, no one's going to give me the money to do this. So I'm going to just go ahead and do my best. And
you didn't stop either.
No,
because you could have stopped at that. Like, okay, I heard the price.
Yeah, and I went straight through. I went straight from college into law school, which if you are considering law school, I highly do not recommend that. I recommend taking a year off, 2 years off. Really try to figure out what you're interested in. Maybe get some real work experience. Most of my colleagues, my classmates in law school, had some type of work experience. I didn't. I went straight through. I don't regret it. I'm happy I did it, but I don't necessarily recommend it to other people because I do think there's value in real life work experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So now you're in law school. You go straight through. What happens after that now? Yeah. Where are you in your life now? Are you married at this point?
No.
Is it okay?
I'm in a lot of debt.
She's like, I'm in a lot of debt.
So
Okay.
much debt. So much debt. So I'm a very transparent person. I like
Okay.
talking numbers. I know
Okay.
in our community that's not very common, but
Right.
it's something that I am very passionate about. Being more transparent, especially when it comes to money. And for college, I had taken out about a $10,000 loan. And sometimes people are like, "Wait, I thought you had a full scholarship." I did, but I decided to take a fifth year. I decided to take a fifth year
Okay.
because I just wanted to. I wish I had like this really thoughtful kind of no, I just wanted to stay in college for another year
Right.
and I did. And so
Okay.
I did take out a loan of for about $10,000 and so I had that and then I had to take out loans for law school. So I was very fortunate to receive a half tuition scholarship.
Okay.
At the time that was about $25,000 a year.
Okay.
But I had to take out about 25,000 for living expenses.
Oh,
So in
so
all, every year I took out about 50K. So
okay.
I took out about 150,000 for law school specifically. So
Mm-hmm.
law school and my undergrad combined was 160,000 in loans. Yeah.
Okay. So by the time you got out of law school,
Yeah.
what happens? Are you quick to get a job and like figure
Yeah.
out how I'm gonna pay this off? What am I?
So when I was in law school, I heard of these jobs called big law jobs, and I
Okay.
was like, "Oh, I want one of those." Why? Because these are the jobs that back then starting salary was $160,000 a year.
Okay.
And that was more money than I could ever imagine. I mean, my
Mm-hmm.
family never made anywhere near that.
Right.
And so what's the catch? The catch is that it's the private sector. My whole life
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was going to go into the public sector. I thought I was going to go into government. I thought I was going to go into politics.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden there's this opportunity to go into the private sector, to go into corporate law,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, representing large companies, banks, large government entities as well, which I did as well while I was practicing law. And I I knew that I wanted one of those jobs, but those jobs are not easy to come by. And those jobs are also very white, very white. There is
Mm-hmm.
very little diversity in big law, and I knew that it was going to be a challenge. I knew that
Right.
the hill up was that climb was going to be really serious, but I was determined to do it, and so I was super focused. My nerd self came back out.
Yeah.
I was super focused, super committed to get the best grades I possibly could. I graduated in the top 10% of my law school class, and I, excuse me, I got a job at one of those coveted law firms,
Okay.
and that really changed a lot for me. Like that, the financial privilege that I came upon
Mm-hmm.
after graduating law school is something that I mean, I would be foolish to ignore like the very real impact that had on my finances, on my money, on my family's money,
Right.
and our financial circumstance. And so I graduated school with a job. I graduated school with a job offer, and it was I was very, very fortunate to have that. And that's when I realized as a very, very young associate, it's time to pay all this debt back.
How do you even go into? First of all, that's overwhelming for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Like I would literally be scared. Like, ugh.
Yeah, it is. And
And most people
and
just run away from it, right? Like no one wants to deal with that.
no, who wants to deal with that debt? But for me, I didn't have a choice. Like I had to,
Yeah,
I
you
couldn't
had
go
to.
into default or anything like that. And also, I didn't have an excuse, right? Like I was making a good income. I really didn't
Right.
have an excuse to do that. And my monthly student loan payment at the time was $2,000, which was more than my rent.
Right. Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus
And
Christ.
I had a decision to make. I was like, I was living in a small studio apartment in Harlem at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I could either move into like a nice one bedroom high rise apartment in the city. Maybe I can buy a car.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
I can, all these things. And I didn't do any of that. I decided to continue to live like a broke law student,
Right.
and I
Right.
decided that I'm going to stay in my studio apartment where my rent is at the time it was $11.50 a month. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to rely on my Metro card. That
We love a good
unlimited.
Metro card. That unlimited is everything.
That unlimited gets you places.
Absolutely.
It gets you where you need to
Do
go.
not sleep on an unlimited Metro card.
No, it's power. It's
Yeah,
power,
it really
you know? Remember the free card that we used to get in high school?
Yes, the green ones, the white with the green
ones. The green ones. I mean, like, you know, possibilities are endless.
Yes.
And yeah, so for me, it was really trying to be as disciplined as possible. And but I don't want people to think that at the time I already automatically just knew about money. No, I didn't. You see, I had graduated law school with this really fancy, prestigious degree at this really, really fancy law firm in the middle of Rockefeller Center in New York City. And I didn't know squat about money.
Right.
I didn't know anything.
So where did your relationship with money, like, where did that begin?
It started with getting a tax refund, not a tax refund, a tax form in the mail.
Okay.
I had been diligently paying off my student loans for 1 year. So I started paying them off January 2016. You know, I graduated in June 2015. Started making the 2015, started making the payments January 2016. That's when my first payment was due. And I just thought that as long as I make my payments, I should be good, right?
Right.
And so I did that. And so I made my $2,000 monthly payment. So if you're doing the math, you know, in the first year, that means I paid $24,000, right? $2,000 a month for 12 months, $24,000. Pretty easy math, right? I get the tax forms that tell me how much interest I had paid, because these are the forms that you get, right? Because then you can you might be able to deduct a portion of the interest that you paid on your taxes. And I look at the forms and I realize that of the $24,000 that I had paid to my student loans, $4,000 went to the principal, aka the amount that I took out, and $20,000 went to the interest. $20,000 went to the interest. Yeah, of the $24,000 that I paid.
My heart just dropped for you at that moment.
Yeah, I felt
That's
angry.
Crazy. Yeah, I was gonna say you must have felt like discouraged at that point.
I think for me, the biggest being discouraged was definitely part of it.
Right.
I thought to myself, I'm never gonna get out of debt. I'm gonna be in debt for the rest of my life.
Right.
But I think the biggest thing I felt was shame, because I didn't know why. I didn't understand it.
Right.
Like, I was looking at the tax forms and I was hoping that the tax forms would explain to me why. And I did not understand it. And I realized that I didn't understand how debt worked. I didn't understand how to budget. I didn't know how to save. I didn't know what an emergency fund was. I didn't know why you needed to build credit, or what was good credit, or how to get good credit. Don't even talk to me about investing. Are you kidding me? We don't.
It's like, I don't even have the money to invest.
I don't even know what to do, right? Like, I realized that I didn't know really anything about money management. And that to me was what I call my aha moment. That was the moment that I was like, all right, that's it. I just don't know anything about money to be an excuse ends today. I'm done. I'm done. I'm going to do better, because I know I can. And so I'm going to get good with money. I don't know how,
so you
but I'm
educated
going
yourself
to. I did.
on money.
I did. Self-education. 100% self-education.
So what was that? That was Google for you?
Was
that
Google.
was, okay. Okay.
It was Google.
Yeah.
Because who else? Who else are you going to ask?
Yeah.
Am I going to ask mommy, papi? No. Like, I'm not going to ask my older sisters.
Right.
They don't know. I'm not going to ask my friends. We don't talk about that.
Right.
Like, I didn't know who to ask. So I went to Google and I Googled, how do I get out of debt? In those words. Like, that was literally what I did. I Googled, how do I get out of debt? And the internet really exposed me to this whole world of what's called personal finance. You know, personal finance is how people on a day-to-day manage their own money. Okay. Some people think it's like, oh, but does that mean it's like accounting or traditional finance like Wall Street? No. We're talking about just like how normal people on a day-to-day basis manage their money.
Right.
And for me, it exposed me to this world of knowledge. And I, back to that theme of always being a good student, I was ready to go back to school. And my school was the internet. And my school was podcasts and blogs and social media, books. and that's what I did. I turned to other resources. And what I found was that most resources were white
Mm.
and they were male and they were privileged and they were a lot older. I don't want to
Mm.
offend anyone,
Right,
but they
right.
were older.
Right.
And I thought, this is so boring.
Like there was none of us in that
No. And
space.
I was like, these big names that you hear of, they're all older white people that I have nothing in common with.
It wasn't relatable.
No, not at all.
Right.
And so I searched some more.
Okay.
I dug. And I found what I was looking for. I found 3 women. I found Bola Sukumbi, who is the founder of Clever Girl Finance, a Black Nigerian woman. I found Jamila Sufran, founder of Journey to Launch, also a Black Jamaican woman. And then I found Janely Espinal, a founder of Miss Be Helpful, a Dominican American Brooklynite. And I was like, bingo. I found what I'm looking for. Bola had an excellent website, blog, and I devoured her content. Janelle had an amazing YouTube channel where she talked about like how she saved money on things, how she was living on like 50% of her income as a teacher in New York City,
Right.
And Jamila on her podcast talked about her own journey and had guests, many who were people of color, talking
Right.
about how they grew their wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where I found my teachers. That is where I found the women that would
So dope.
educate me and teach me in a way that like I so desired.
Right.
I wanted to learn from women that were the children of immigrants, that were maybe immigrants themselves, that, I wanted to see myself in who I was learning from. Because that would have the most lasting impact on me. And I'm so, so thankful for them. I'm thankful that all 3 of them are now friends of mine.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love this.
And it's it just goes to show like, representation really matters.
It really does.
It does. And I think when you have representation out there, it really has the opportunity to change people's lives. I'm a big
So
believer
now,
of that.
like through your Google search, and now you
Yeah.
found all these 3 women.
Mhm.
What did you find? Like, what were some of the things that they were teaching you that you said, okay, now I can then apply this to my life?
One of the biggest things was you need a budget.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it came down to. You want to get good credit? You want to invest?
That's the word everyone's afraid of, by the way.
No one likes
is
it.
budget.
No one likes it. You want to have, you want to pay off your debt. You want to invest. You want to buy a house. You want to have a nice wedding. You want to buy that Chanel bag. You need a budget.
That's right.
Period.
You know,
Okay.
I'm an event planner, and I
Yeah.
always, that's my first question to clients.
budget?
Like, what's your budget?
Yeah.
If we
Yeah.
can't establish that,
Yeah.
there's no event.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So it's so
Because
funny
if
that you
your
bring that
budget
up.
is $500, I'm going to get you a nice little cheese plate, right?
That
If your
part.
budget is
Right.
$50,000, we're getting draping.
That's right.
Like, but I need to know where you're going. Now, what is a budget? A budget
Right.
is your money plan.
Mm-hmm. It's
So
the
if you
plan.
don't,
It's the
like
plan.
the word budget, don't say it.
Don't
Don't
say it.
use it.
Yeah.
Replace it with money plan.
Mhm.
That's what I tell people. Because the word budget makes people think, oh, it's restrictive, it's boring, it's no. Just so don't use it.
But it's that
Don't
one
use
word
it.
that people are like,
It's cringe.
why? But
Yeah,
why?
it's cringe because society has taught us that budget and budgeting and doing things on a budget means that you're cheap. It means that you're frugal. It means that you don't have enough. It's associated with scarcity rather than abundance.
Right.
And that's the problem. So for me, whose business is called zero-based budget,
That's right.
I love my budget.
Right.
I love my budget. My budget has helped me become debt-free. My budget has helped me grow my net worth to multiple 6 figures. My budget has allowed me to generously give to my family in Ecuador and in Honduras and to my parents. My budget has allowed me to do things that 10, 12-year-old Cindy never could have imagined. And that is why I'm so passionate to educate women on money management, but generally it's not just about debt or just about the budget or just about investing. It's about financial freedom.
Yes.
That it's about seeing money as a tool to accomplish your goals rather than a burden that is going to prevent you from reaching your goals. We need to shift our mentality. And I understand that I had a lot of financial privilege, right? Like, let's not ignore that. And then people are like, but Cindy, you grew up low income. Yes, I did. But I was also a corporate lawyer.
Right.
I was also a practicing corporate lawyer for 6 years, and that came with a lot of money. It did. It did. But here's what I didn't do. I didn't inflate my lifestyle.
Right.
I didn't look like a lawyer. I looked like a regular person, because I knew that my money needed to do certain things. I didn't have the privilege, even though I had a lot of financial privilege I had a lot of like income privilege.
Right.
I didn't have the kind of privilege that my parents paid off my school loans or that I didn't have any, or like I have like a trust fund or something like that, right?
You were still doing for you.
Right. And so it's like I needed to make sure that income that I was receiving was being very smartly allocated.
Like,
and
you needed to make your money work for you.
I had to. I didn't have a choice, right? It was like I need to become money savvy. I need to pay off my debt, and I need to do it on my own. No one else helped me. Like, my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time. Like, no one helped me financially, right? It was really just me. And that's okay, right? That's okay, because there are a lot of things in life that we kind of have to do on our own. But it required a plan. And for me, my plan was my budget. My plan was seeing, okay, Cindy, you make this amount of money a month. Where is all that money going? How much of that is going into savings? How much of it is going to your debt payment, your student loans? How much of it is going to dining out, to groceries, to your light bill, your rent? Like, where is your money going? Because a lot of times people say, oh, but like, I'm never going to get out of debt. And I ask them, do you have a plan? And they're like, I mean, I make my payments. I'm like, no. Did you ever create your own debt repayment plan?
Like a plan.
And then it's like, oh, but like, well, I just know I don't make enough. But do you know what your spending looks like? So you start asking people questions, and all of a sudden you start kind of like breaking through, like, oh, maybe I can do this in my own way.
Well, wait, let's talk about sacrifice, right? Because with budget comes sacrifice. To a certain extent.
It does.
For instance, if your goal is paying off these loans, you can't Uber Eats all the time. You can't go out with your friends. You can't buy that Chanel bag. You have to then step back to take 2 steps forward. Right?
Yeah.
So what was some of the sacrifices that you made to then clear up this debt?
So again, I stayed in my low rent studio apartment in Harlem. I stuck with my Metro card, and I gave myself a very modest Uber Lyft budget, very, very modest.
So you even have a budget for the Lyft?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did. Because otherwise it gets really, that thing
pricey.
climbs up really, really quick. I brought my own lunch to work every day. Eating in New York City is really expensive. It's like $15, $20 easy every single day. Over the course of a month, just on lunch, you're looking at like $400 just for lunch, right? So what did I do instead? I meal prepped, and I packed my lunch from home, and I would give myself, on Fridays, I would allow myself to buy lunch, right?
Okay.
I always found balance. And I always tell people, when I started coaching clients, when it comes to all things budgeting, I ask people, what do you value? What do you value? If you value getting your nails done, put it in your budget.
Right.
If you value buying yourself a nice blouse every once and again, put shopping in your budget.
Right.
But do it intentionally. See, a lot of us, we just swipe. We swipe. We don't think about what we're spending on. And which means you're not acting in accordance with your plan.
Right.
And so any goal that you want to achieve, you need to have a plan in place, but you also need to have some type of a system to accomplish it. And so I always tell people, like, I'm never going to be the one to tell you, you need to cut out your $6, $7 latte every day.
Right.
Like, that's it. It's a no. I'm instead going to ask you, what do you value? Do you value that latte because it gives you an excuse to get out of your house, because you work from home every day? Or is it just like a convenient thing? Like, you don't even really like it like that. It's just convenient, and you're rushing on your way to work.
It's like the costumbre of like getting the latte. Yeah.
And if the thing is, well, Cindy, honestly, it's just that it's very convenient and I need some caffeine in the morning. Well, then, girl, make your coffee at home.
But here's the thing. If you were to ask me, what do I value? I would say time. So for me, I spend my money because I'm trying to buy time. So I would spend on maybe getting, someone to clean my house because
Mhm.
I can allocate that time somewhere else.
Yes.
Or I would spend money on someone doing my laundry because I can
Mhm.
use that time somewhere else.
Conveniences are totally acceptable.
Okay.
Totally
Because I almost
acceptable.
felt guilty saying
No,
that
no,
right now.
no.
But
No, conveniences.
okay.
I mean, my husband and I, right before the pandemic, we had a cleaning lady for like a whole probably like year or so until, of course, the pandemic happened and all of a sudden I was back to scrubbing my tub.
Right,
Um,
right.
but no, I mean, obviously very, very honorable work that those in the cleaning industry do, and they should be paid right.
That's right.
And they should be tipped. But anyways,
Absolutely.
we had that because our time was huge.
It was valuable.
Convenience
Yeah.
was very valuable. Obviously, I wrote a book, and there were certain weeks where I could not cook. That was
Mm.
not going to happen. So my husband and I, we ordered this like meal delivery service.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little more expensive than groceries, yeah, but it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna save me a ton of time because I have lunch right there, I have dinner right there. I don't even have to think about it. Pop it in the
Right.
microwave, pop it in the oven, and I'm good to go, right? But you need to put it in your budget.
Mm.
That's the thing. Just put it in the budget. You care about it, put it in the budget because the budget is going to tell you, yeah, you can afford that. You can, let's just as an example, your income let's say is $4,000 a month, right? After
Mm-hmm.
you pay your taxes and everything like that, you get $4,000 in the month.
Mm-hmm.
Where are those $4,000 going?
All right.
Some of it's going to go to rent. Some of it's going to go to groceries. Some of it's going to go to the cleaning lady.
Yeah.
Some of it is going to go to the latte that you pick up because you're always
You're
on a
on the
rush
go.
and you're on a go and you don't got time to brew your own coffee, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to put your money where you value it. But maybe you don't really value all the crap that you're buying on Amazon for your bathroom and your
Mm-hmm.
kitchen, all the gadgets.
Right.
So maybe we cut back on
Yeah,
that
we
a little
take that
bit,
back. Right.
right? Maybe if you're spending $200 a month on Amazon, I'm not saying put it down to zero, but maybe you give yourself like $50 instead.
Right.
Small steps. Small steps is what I really encourage people to do. But the first thing that you need to do is you need to look at your spending.
Right.
I like doing a spending audit. Is what I recommend that people do. You're going to look at the past 3 to 4 months of your spending, your
Okay.
credit card bill.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's a whole topic I want to touch on with
Yeah,
you. Is the
yeah,
credit cards.
yeah. Your debit card transactions. I want you to go, and if you have different color highlighters, even better.
Just-
And I want you to start marking up what is shopping, what is food, what is any other type of spending that you have. Start marking it up and start looking at how you are spending your money. Because if you are spending more than what you make, that means you're funding it with debt. Period. And that is something that no one wants to hear that. No one, how dare you, Cindy? How dare you accuse me of living off of debt? Are you though? Are you?
But you are.
Yeah. And if you are, we need to have a conversation because there's only 2 things that we can do. There's only 2 things. If you're like, well, Cindy, my lifestyle is just, it's not like, I know my lifestyle is higher than what I make. Right. Well, then you have 2 things that you can do. And I tell people, I'm very big on leading with kindness and love, but I'm also from the Bronx. I'm going to give it to you just like it is. All right.
Right.
What you need to do is you either need to cut back your expenses or you need to increase your income. Period.
That's it.
That's it.
One or the
It's
other.
math.
Right.
It is math. If what leaves is greater than what comes in, it is math. There are only 2 ways to fix that. You lower your expenses, so you go through your spending and you have that really tough conversation. Or if you're like, Cindy, I looked at my spending and it is perfect and I am very happy with how I'm spending my money. Well, then that's great, but your income is not covering it.
Right.
So you need to go and increase your income. You need to go to your job and negotiate a pay raise. You need to
Right.
go for that promotion that you know that you should have gone after 2 years ago and you didn't because maybe you were too scared.
Right.
You need to seek mentors in the industry that you're in to help elevate you. You need to maybe leave that job.
Right.
Maybe you need to leave that job. We know that the biggest pay increases that we can get is when we job hop, is when
Right.
we leave the job, right?
Right.
And so that statistically speaking, that is the biggest way to increase your income. It is to get a new job. And for you, maybe that's the right thing to do. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's starting a side hustle, something that you're already good at, right? And you want to do $1, $2, $3, $500 a month can make a really big difference. But again, you only have two options:
Right.
decrease expenses or increase your income.
So first of all, I love this conversation.
Yeah.
I really, really do. So there's a couple of things I want to touch on really quickly. Side hustle. What are some great passive incomes that someone can do immediately to just get a few dollars in their bank account going, just to kind of maybe slightly increase it in the meantime?
Yeah.
What would you suggest?
First, I would suggest, what are your skills, right?
Okay.
Like, what are you already good at? If you are a teacher, tutoring.
Okay.
Right? If you're in education, tutoring, especially now, virtual tutoring is very popular because of the pandemic. We didn't really have a choice, right? I mean, now you're saving on a commute, right? You don't have to commute. And you can tutor a kid from the comfort of your home. You know, depending on what subjects you teach, the age of the child, you know, you can charge $40, $50 an hour for a tutoring session. Let's say you do that, you know, 5 times a week. That's $250 a week. I mean, we're talking like, you know, over $1,000 a month. Boom. That's one idea.
Okay.
But you need to look at what you're good at, right? Maybe you're very efficient. You're very active. You're like, Cindy, I don't want to stay at home. I want to do something. Instacart, Uber Eats,
I always
Postmates.
say that. Yes.
You know, those are things that you can start ASAP. You know, they will do like a background check and all of that. So that may take like a couple of days.
Right.
But that's something that you can get into. If you, unlike me, like driving, Uber, Lyft, right? Like there are things that you can do outside of the home, right? I always immediately gravitate to virtual because a lot of the work that I do is virtual. But there are a lot of things that you can do out. TaskRabbit. If you're really good at, you know, cleaning, organizing, people pay people to organize their home.
I'm one of those people. Yeah.
If you're good at it, if you have that eye, go for it. Take a certification online, you know, for organizing, whatever that would look like, and start charging people for it. Okay. TaskRabbit is a really, really good resource for that. For example, my husband and I, like I said, we moved very recently. And we had a lot of things that we needed hung up, right? Like paintings, frames, my Dyson, like the charger for my Dyson, right? And like, I didn't want to do all that. I didn't, you know, I really didn't want to do all that. And so we hired a TaskRabbit. You know, and we paid this guy who came in and was very good at his job, very professional, came in, got it done. We paid him. Boom. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
And I actually asked him, actually he volunteered because I asked him like, you know, I think I was like, I think last minute there was like something else that I needed him to do. And I was like, I want to make sure it doesn't interfere with one of your other jobs. And he's like, no, I'm good with my timing. But then he said, yeah, I do this like full time. Like he's been able to leave his job because he makes more money an hour.
Isn't that insane?
Doing TaskRabbit.
Isn't that
crazy? And he loves it. He's like he's happy doing it.
And he makes his own schedule.
And he makes his own schedule. You know, I even needed I got these like gold frames in my living room to do kind of like a gallery wall situation. See, I don't have that eye. My sister, the fashion designer, she's the one that got like the artist eye. I don't have that.
Right.
And so he was like, how do you want these? And I was like, I don't know. And so he did it. He laid it out. And he was happy doing it. The point is that you are good at something.
Right.
You are, right?
So tap into it.
If you can tap into it. Also, for someone like me who's a small business owner, I hire people to help me with, now with social media, but I've helped people to help me with like virtual assistant roles. So if you're really organized and you have a good attention to detail, look into becoming a VA. Look into becoming a virtual assistant. You know, you can help people with their emails, organizing their files. I hired this girl. I put it on my social media like, hey, I need someone to archive all my Instagram posts, you know, to have it really nicely done. Boom, boom.
That's a whole job.
Boom, boom. She did it. She did it for me.
I love that.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I paid her. I paid her rate. She was like, I charge this. And I was like, great, because I don't have the time to deal with this.
Right.
And she did it. And she was happy to do it because she already had that experience. You know, you are already good at something. Tap into it and look at what you can do. And also my new book does have a couple of ideas for side hustles. Not to plug, but let me
plug it.
Yeah,
plug it.
Yeah.
Okay. Next thing I want to discuss, credit cards. So growing up,
Yeah.
Mommy always told me not to have a credit card.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be very honest.
Please.
I do not have a credit
Oh,
card
no, girl.
even now.
Oh, no. We're going to change. Oh, hold on.
I know, yeah.
I need
I
this
know,
to not
you
have
know-
water in it.
Yeah, yeah, I'll sit with you.
Yeah.
So
No, let's
mommy-
talk
so
about this.
listen,
Let's talk about this.
I know, I feel like this is like an intervention.
No, let's talk about this.
So I don't know, mommy just always told me like, listen, it's a sure way to get into debt.
Yeah.
And so, because the mindset, right,
Yeah.
is a real thing. For you shifted your mindset where you
Right.
had a very, like you understood your issues with money, but you also had a positive relationship with money.
I would say so, yeah. Yeah.
For me, I think I was like raised to feel like debt and money
Fear?
wasn't power.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there was a lot of fear surrounding it.
Yeah.
And I had a credit card when I
Mhm.
was, I think I was like 20.
Mhm.
And then I had, what did I have? Victoria's Secret.
Oh,
Banana
everyone has Victoria's
Republic.
Secret. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would buy everybody's
Yeah.
Christmas gifts.
Mm-hmm.
You were either getting something from Victoria's Secret or Banana
Macy's.
Republic
Or Macy's.
or Macy's.
Yeah.
Right? So I got into this incredible amount of debt.
Yeah.
I got into a car accident, which obviously we settled,
Mhm.
right? So that allowed me to then go to college, which is why I do not have student loans right now,
Mm.
because I paid for school with the settlement check,
Mhm.
and then I paid off my debt with the
Mm.
settlement check.
Okay. Well, at least you were smart with your settlement check.
Right.
This is good.
This is
This
good.
is good.
But then I said,
No more.
no more,
Yeah.
right? And instead of paying off everything,
Mm-hmm.
I actually called them and said, what can we settle for?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I paid.
Mm-hmm.
And now here I am today
Mm-hmm.
with no credit card, with an incredible amount of fear. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't even want a credit. Like people tell me all the time, you need, girl, you need credit. Like you're a woman of business, you need credit. And I'm like,
Yeah, you do. You
can
do.
I just do a debit card? Like I just don't.
No.
So
No. Yeah, let's talk about
let's
this.
talk about
Because
this.
this is a very real thing that I think our community sees. I also was grown up in a I was raised in a household where, debt is evil. It's
Mhm.
evil. I want to first lead with this. Rich people, the wealthy, they leverage debt.
Mm.
They use debt for everything. I'm not saying that I want you to go and start opening up all these credit cards and taking out all
Right.
these loans. No, don't. But use it smartly. That's the key. I had about $13,000 of credit card debt.
Mhm.
That was part of my debt-free journey. My
Right.
law school's my student loans grew up to about $202,000. My credit cards were about 13. I paid off about $215,000 of debt. Consumer debt was real for me. It was very easy for me to swipe the plastic. And also a lot of it was done when I just plain and simple just couldn't afford
Right.
certain things when I was in law school. And since becoming credit card debt free, which was in, I think, probably like late 2016 or so, around there, since then, I have not paid a dime in interest to any credit card companies.
Mm.
I have 7 credit cards. I have not had any credit card debt in the sense of like, paying interest to companies, not being able to pay off my balances in full every month. I have an 800 plus credit score and I don't use my debit card. Okay.
That was the ultimate flex.
And
That was the ultimate flex.
the last one,
Uh-huh.
I've made about $13,000 to $14,000 in credit card rewards. Yeah. So let's talk about it.
I love this.
Okay. You see, when you start realizing that you can, first of all, you need to remove the I can't
Right.
from your head, because it is a mindset shift. And that's hard. That's really hard work to do. But you need to shift your mindset from, you know what? I am good at managing debt. I am good at managing my money. I am a businesswoman. I am a woman that makes things happen. So let me make this happen.
Right.
Let me start leveraging debt in a strategic way, the
Right,
way
right.
that these old white men do.
Mhm.
Let me try to do a little something like that. And when you start shifting your mindset and start realizing that credit is actually incredibly important.
Right.
Incredibly important. You want to buy a house, you need good credit. You want to lease or finance a car, you need good credit. You want to start your own business, you need good credit. You want to in New York, you want to lease an apartment, you need good credit. Some of you that work in, let's say, the financial services industry, certain jobs will run your credit. A friend of mine, her job offer was rescinded. Why? Because she had bad credit.
Wow.
I will say this friend of mine also now has excellent credit and is a personal finance educator, okay? And has her own like fintech startup company, you know, which is incredible. But is also a testament that no matter where you think you may be, you're drowning in debt, maybe you don't have good credit, anything like that, you can get out of that situation, right?
Okay.
And you not only can you get out of it, but you can thrive. So the first thing that I would suggest is having that really hard, difficult conversation of why did I get into debt? Like, really, why did I get into debt?
Right.
And be really honest with yourself. Be very, very honest with yourself. A lot of people, it's, well, I just couldn't afford like groceries. And other people is, I wanted to buy nice things. And I wanted to keep up with people, you know, and I wanted to keep up with the happy hours that I was getting invited to. Do the honest work first. Then you need to educate yourself. Okay. Step 2 is actually understand how credit works. Understand what makes up your credit score. Okay. And understand the fact that credit cards specifically have some of the biggest impact on your credit, which is why I am such a proponent of using credit cards, but using them very intelligently.
But wait, hold on. When you say that, like, what are some of the things you would, you know, buy on the credit card? Like, was it coffee? Like, what were some of the intelligent?
Now? Now everything.
Okay, so everything goes on your credit card and then you just pay it back.
Everything goes on my credit card. Everything goes on my credit card, from grocery shopping to, you know, clothing to transportation. Everything goes on the card. And here is the key. It gets paid off in full.
Okay.
By the due date.
Okay.
That is the key. If I can leave people with one thing, you must pay off your balance in full. I mean, we're going down to zero. By the due date. People say there's this myth of, oh, well, I need to carry a balance. I need to have a little something on the card to build good credit. That's a myth. That is false. Okay. You need to pay off your card in full. Now, the person that's like, Cindy, okay, I hear you, but I'm still a little scared. I'm kind of scared of opening up that first card and what it could lead me to. Here's what I recommend to my clients. This is what I recommend to my clients that have just finished paying off credit cards. And I tell them, please don't close them. Because when you close your credit cards, it impacts your credit score. It impacts your age of credit. Okay, that's a factor that makes up 10 to 15% of your credit score. It impacts your credit limit, like your credit line, okay, also known as your credit utilization rate. That's 30%.
Wow.
That is 30. We're already talking about 40 to 45% of your credit score has now been impacted because you closed that card. I'm not saying that you should never close a card. I'm not saying that. I've actually closed a card. I closed my first credit card that I ever opened because it was very predatory and just very, very bad. But since then, you know, I have now, I guess I have 5 personal cards and 1 business credit card. I have 6 credit cards now, right? So what do I suggest the person that just paid off their credit card debt, and they're like, okay, Cindy, I'm kind of ready to now get into the game, like get into the thing that you do, but I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to start by putting a subscription on there. Your Spotify, your YouTube Premium, your iCloud storage, whatever, right?
Yes.
Put something that you know you pay every month. Your cell phone bill, whatever it is. Something that you pay every single month, and don't use the credit card. Put it away. See, you're going to keep the credit card active because you're using it. It's paying your Spotify every month.
Which is what you already pay.
You already pay it. But here's the second part to it. You're going to set up an automatic payment from your checking account to your credit card.
So you don't
every
even
single
have to
month.
think about it.
So there's no thinking. You have a credit card that automatically is being used because it's paying your Spotify subscription, for example, but it's also automatically getting paid. So there's no more of, oh my gosh, I forgot the payment, or no, because you already know how much you need to pay and you're automatically making that payment.
Got it.
And that's how you start to build the healthy habit. That's how you start, okay? You also have maybe a pretty big expense that's coming up, maybe like a trip, right? And you need to put the flight and the hotel on this credit card. You sign up for a credit card that's offering, you need to be very strategic with this, that's offering a sign up bonus of, let's say, 80,000 miles, right? And you need to spend in the first 4 months of opening it, you need to spend $4,000. That sounds like a lot, and that's scary.
Yes.
And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable, right? But if when you open it, you put this trip that you're gonna spend,
Right.
that's probably gonna be at least maybe like $2,000, right, between the flight and the hotel and
Right,
whatever it may be.
absolutely.
And then the other 2,000, you're like, okay, the only other thing then that I'm gonna use aside from this trip is groceries, right?
And that's it.
And that's it. And then you put the card away.
Okay.
Okay. Because now you already know what expenses are there and you now know that you can pay it. Okay. So what's going to happen? You went ahead and you signed up for this credit card. You followed the method, right? You
Right.
followed Cindy's method of putting intentional, that is the key, intentional purchases on this card, making the payment, paying it off in full. So you don't have any interest.
Right.
You're not paying interest.
Right.
There's no interest being paid on this. Okay. You are using debt strategically.
Right.
You are using it strategically. And at the end of your, let's say, 4 months, the credit card company says, very good. Here's your 80,000 points. Those 80,000 points, they convert to $1,000 worth of flights. Boom. You just got your first $1,000
I love this.
without
Okay.
doing anything.
I love
Without
this.
paying anything, without paying any interest, no. Boom. Simple way to do it. I've had to book emergency flights for my parents. Actually, I had to do this last September, for my uncle who passed away. And my mom and dad had to go to Ecuador to, obviously, my uncle passed away later, but he was very, very sick. And so they wanted to go to spend time with him. And I had to book these emergency flights, and I did so using my credit card points. And their flights,
Points.
I probably paid out of pocket like $200 maybe for
Wow.
2 round trip tickets to Ecuador.
Wow.
I mean, it's when you start realizing that there is a method here. There is a little bit of a game. When you start to learn how to play it,
That's the real power.
that's the real power. That's when then you can say, you know what? I've made $13,000 to $14,000 off of credit cards in the past 5 years.
Let's go into,
Yeah.
I still have so many questions. No, I really do. 401k plans.
Yes.
Okay, so 401k plan. So I currently have my 401k plan because I had a day job, left the day job, and now it's just sitting there. Nothing is happening. No one's contributing to this. What do you say to people in this point right now? Like, do we move it to the different account? Because obviously you can't do anything with it until you possibly get another day job, and then you can, have your other employer switch it over for you. So
I had to go through that because I left my law firm last May, and I had a 401k. And so what I did is I rolled it over.
Okay.
So what did I roll it over into, right? So it went from being a 401k, which a 401k is an investment account for retirement through your employer. It is not your only option for investing for retirement. There are many other types of accounts, but specifically with an employer, in the private sector is a 401k. In the public sector is a 403b. And government employees, you might know this as a 457b. They're all the same thing. They're all retirement accounts. And so what I did is I took that money. You don't have to, but I'm a big proponent of rolling it over. Why? Because every year it's something like over $1 billion or some astronomical number dollars that get left behind because people forget. People forget.
Right.
They're like, oh, wait, you know what? I think I had a 401k that, and it's like, it's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? That's your money. Like, and people
money
will
you worked
forget.
for.
Money that you worked for, and people will forget. And so I'm a very, very, very big proponent of rolling it over. And what I did is I rolled it over into what is called an IRA, an individual retirement account. I have mine with Vanguard. Vanguard is a brokerage, which is basically an investment firm, right?
Okay.
And what I did then was that I specifically invested that money. Okay. I went ahead and I was like, okay, I'm moving over this money. Now I'm going to invest it, and I invested it in low cost index funds. So what are
Okay.
index funds? I know people are probably like, whoa, slow down, right?
Right.
People think investing is all about picking stocks. It's not. You can do that. I'm
Mhm.
lazy. I don't do that. Okay.
Right.
I'm very lazy. I
Uh-huh.
don't have the time to look at how's the stock market doing. It's going up, it's going down. Oh my gosh, I'm getting an ulcer from just looking. I don't have time for any of that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I'm a very, very passive investor. And so I like index funds. What are index funds? Think of a stock as like a flower, okay, like a rose. Think of index funds as a bouquet.
Mm.
It's a variety. All right. It's a variety of stocks. It's a group of stocks. You got a little bit of Amazon in there, a little bit of Microsoft, a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of Starbucks, a little bit of you got a little bit of everything.
Right. Like you have your
Okay.
hands in everything
You
pretty much.
have diversification,
There
which
you
we
go.
love, right? Which we love. And so I chose to invest mine in a low cost index fund. So something that's not super expensive, right? To like have, but that invests in what you can say is the total stock market. So I was
Okay.
like, you know what? I don't want to pick one stock. I want all of them.
Right. You
I want
selfish.
all of the stocks. Give me all of the
Right.
stocks.
Right.
And that's what I personally invested my money in. Now, you can invest your money in whatever, pleases you. But the point is that you now all of a sudden have a little bit more power,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you have a little bit more ownership because now that money feels a little bit more like under your control. I highly, highly recommend a free service, which I have partnered with in full transparency. But even without partnering with them, I use their service.
Right.
They're the ones who actually rolled over my 401k and they did all of it. I didn't have to
Nice.
call. I didn't have to like worry about like, oh my gosh, I have to look for my 401k with my employer. I have to talk to HR. No,
None of
they
that.
did everything for me. Or like, oh my gosh, I
Okay.
have to set it up now with Vanguard. Like I
Right.
have to, no, they did
Oh,
everything.
amazing.
And the
Okay.
company's name is called Capitalized. Okay.
Okay.
So C A
You got it. You got it.
Capitalize.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
capitalize. Um, really, really great company. It's not even to say that I've had rosé because this is water. Why can't I spell?
¿Qué está pasando
Why
aquí?
can't I spell? But Capitalize is a really great company that offers a free service.
Okay.
It's a free service, and you can go ahead and roll over your retirement account. So yeah, I'm a big fan of doing that, just so that you can have, because then if you do get another day job and then you leave that day job, you can start just rolling it all over into one place,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just one account that you'll have here, all right? You can roll over all these old accounts that you have from all these old employers into one place.
Now, let's talk about, I feel like I have so many questions. This is going to be a long one. So, if you have a day job
Mm-hmm.
and you're in between your dreams and your reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a day job and this is the money that is now funding your dreams,
Mm-hmm.
but you no longer want to be there and your dreams is kind of sort of making you money.
Yeah.
When is the right time to leave your job to then go into full-time into your dreams?
Yeah. So as someone that did this, because I had my full-time job as an attorney, where I was making a very good salary, had it was all the bells and whistles. But my passion project was starting to really kind of grow and take off. And I realized, this could become something. One of the biggest things everyone needs is an emergency fund, like non-negotiable.
But how much
You-
are you saving
Yeah.
in
So
this fund?
I highly recommend saving at least 6 months
Okay.
of your necessary expenses. If this is the kind of jump that you're going to make, right? If you're going from your full-time job to your passion project or whatever it may be, if you don't support anyone but yourself, right? So
Right.
if you don't have any dependents, 6 months is pretty solid, right?
Okay.
Because hopefully within those 6 months, your side project is really going to start to make the money that you really need.
Right.
And ideally, when I say 6 months, I mean necessary expenses. I don't mean like your 6 months of spending or
Right.
6 months of income. I literally mean like rent, groceries, the light bill, your cell phone bill, internet, like
Right.
the
Essentials only.
essentials only. I want you to add up that number for 1 month and I want you to multiply that by 6. That is your goal number, okay, for your emergency fund. If you have dependents, I would really err on 12 months. Okay. If it's because of this leap that you're going to make. I want to make it very clear, everyone should have an emergency fund. Whether you have a day job or not, or wherever you are, my general rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months of necessary living expenses. But if we're talking about someone that's going to go from full-time job to entrepreneurship, I really want to err more to 6 to 12 months of necessary living expenses, because that's going to help you, fund your dreams. It's going to help you pay the bills, and I think we need to get very real of the risk that comes from leaving a full-time job, because it is very risky. And you might go through some pretty dark times when it comes to your money. So, because unless depending on what kind of business you have, you might not start making money right away. You likely won't, and you will have expenses. People love saying, oh, my business brought in $500,000 last year. How much expenses did you have?
Like, what's your overhead?
Yeah, like you had to pay people. It's expensive, right? So I just want you to be very honest with yourself, and I want you to have an emergency fund. I also want you to be very, very knowledgeable on what it takes to run your business. Like, how much does it take to run your business? If you are, for example, in the candle making business, you need to very much account for your inventory, right? The wicks, the soy melt thingy, right? The actual jars, packaging, shipping. You need to account for all of that in your numbers, right? How much are you going to need to make that happen? If you have a virtual business, what kinds of software do you need to purchase to make it run? Do you need to hire a virtual assistant maybe to make things happen? You need to get very, very honest with yourself. And that's what I did. I got very honest with myself and said, okay, what am I going to need in order to make this happen? And I saved pretty aggressively. And I made sure to do it. And I'm very happy that I did, because, last year, even though my business brought in $150,000 in revenue, which I was very happy about, this year I thought, well, I want to double that, right? And then I had to write a book. And that takes like 90% of your time. That takes really all of your time. And boom, there goes a pause on a lot of the revenue sources that I would have otherwise had. So, I'm not saying that everyone is going to have to kind of put a stop in their plans because something like a book comes through. But what if you find yourself pregnant?
Which is a very real thing.
What if you get engaged and now you need to, save for a wedding? Like, life happens.
That's right.
It happens. And so I just want you to be prepared, because if it does happen, then have your financial safety net, that's there. And I also don't believe that your partner should 100% be your financial safety net. Of course, we want to be able to rely on our partners. And if we have good partners, we will be able to. But I'm a very big proponent on women having their own money. Always. And so I just want to make sure that you have enough, for you, if anything ever happens.
Now, talk to me about business taxes, because I learned this the hard way. So I never took a side. First of all, I never paid myself. I just started paying myself now. So I have this business, don't pay myself, and then I don't.
Girl, how do you eat?
Then I don't send, like, I don't take money and put it to the side for my taxes. So I'm thinking,
oh, the tax bill came.
So I'm thinking, oh, I'm making all of this money, right? I'm like, oh, I'm good. Someone's paying me this. And then I got to pay taxes. And I'm like, so I'm not making that.
You're not.
So if I was making 20,000, I was really making 10.
Yeah. And
and that was a very hard lesson for me.
It's a harsh reality that a lot of people come into, unfortunately, usually the bad way. See, this is how taxes work. When we are employed by an employer, our employer has the responsibility of withholding taxes. They withhold our federal taxes, our state taxes. If, for example, you live in a place like New York City, your city taxes. They also withhold what's called FICA taxes, right? So your payroll taxes, your Medicare tax, Social Security tax, your employer is responsible for doing all of that.
Right.
They, aka HR, right? HR does that for us. So what happens is we just get a paycheck and that's it. That's is our money. That is our money to spend, right? That is not how it works when you are self-employed.
That's right.
Because when you are self-employed, you have an employer that's doing that for you. So you need to do it, okay? And the rule of thumb is whatever comes in, that is called your revenue, all right? So whatever you bring in, let's say, for example, you get contracted to have start a project, whatever it may be, it's $10,000. They're going to pay you $10,000, right? Oh, amazing. $10,000, right? Oh, I have $10,000 to spend. Absolutely not. You do not. You have to first, you must put money aside for taxes. Now, there are a lot of business write-offs, right? Which that's another topic, right? But first, I want to make sure that at the bare minimum, you are ensuring that you're paying your taxes. And so what I recommend, and many other financial educators recommend, is setting aside 25 to 30% of whatever you bring in for taxes.
Right.
Okay. And I like the thought of having a separate savings account that you don't really have access to like that. Like just a total separate savings account that holds your tax money.
Right.
So that when you pay either your quarterly or annual taxes, the money's there.
Right.
You're not scrambling into your personal savings account to pay your taxes. And so if, again, going off of the example, if we got a $10,000 check for this project that we completed, amazing. You are going to go ahead and you're going to take $2,500 to $3,000 and you're going to go and you're going to put it in that savings account. And then the rest of the money, you're going to do whatever you need to do. You're going to pay your overhead. You're going to pay yourself. You're going to do whatever you need to do. But I find that initially doing that will help protect you from then during tax season, like having to scramble. Which happens so much. I've seen it happen so many times. Decision. And it's hard.
It's super hard.
And it's also tempting, right? I mean, we're human. It's tempting to see that $10,000 check and be like, this is mine.
Yeah. And you're like, I'm rich. It's not mine anymore.
But you have to remember that Uncle Sam will always get his.
Insane.
Always.
I know this is like kind of off topic, but not really. What are your thoughts on Shakira and like her? Because I'm like, it doesn't just happen. Like that accumulation, you had to have known that these things were already kind of brewing. So, and I don't know how true the story is, but I'm just saying what's in the media. Like, what are your thoughts? I'm just interested in hearing your thoughts about that.
So what I think when it comes to really any celebrity that has any tax problems, I think they trusted the wrong people.
Okay.
And that's why my biggest takeaway from whatever it may be, whether it's true or false, that she's committed
it's alleged
tax violations, right? You need to have the right people in your corner. Please make sure that you have an accountant if you don't have one already. Please make sure that they're trustworthy. Make sure that they're reputable. Don't go just to the guy in the corner because, mommy said that he knows taxes. Like, does he really? Does he have credentials? Because you see, celebrities, that's not their job. Their job isn't to manage their books. Their job is to perform. Their job is to entertain.
Right.
And so I think that she did not have the right people in her corner. Now, does that mean that under the law that she's exempt? No. Right? Under the law, depending on what they find, she could very well be guilty of violations, just as maybe she's not guilty of any violations. But that's why we need to be very mindful of our money too. So if you are a small business owner, of course, I want you to have your accountant. I want you to have your bookkeeper. I want you to have your team. But also, like, don't just fully turn a blind eye. Check in on your books. Check in on what's happening. Like, did my taxes get filed on time? Did they get paid on time? How are things getting paid? Are my vendors all all good? Like, please make sure that your own money is doing right. And see, that's the thing, right?
It's accounted for.
That it's accounted for. And that's the thing. It's a delicate balance, right? Because I just finished saying that she's an entertainer. That's not her job to do, right? And you're right. It's not. But I mean, unless we're as big as Shakira, right? We should have an eye on our finances. I mean, how many sports like athletes and celebrities have you heard of that go broke?
Yeah.
Right?
And that's
And
the
it's
thing, they
like
kind of all go through that. I feel like there's
so
so many
many
stories
of
that we
them.
hear.
Child
Yeah.
stars that were big, right, in our times of like the 80s, the 90s and whatnot. And now they're broke.
And
And
you're
it's
like,
really
where did their
sad.
money go?
And it's like, well, why did that happen? It's because they did not have the right people in their corner. Because if they had the right people that helped manage their money correctly, like for example, if you're a child star, you should have a trust fund. You should have money that's going into a trust that you're not going to be able to touch until you're like 18. Now there are some laws around that.
Right.
There weren't really that many laws like years ago. But you need to really have certain systems set up in place to protect you.
Right.
A lot of these athletes, some of these kids, they're graduating high school and getting recruited, into the leagues, which is awesome. But now because of social media, they're now influencers too. They have 1 million followers, which means that they're getting brand deals. So they're not just getting money from their sport, but they're getting money from brand partners.
Like
and
endorsement deals.
And yeah, these endorsement deals. And what's happening is that they are coming across so much money, and especially in communities of color, they're coming across more money than they probably have ever seen in their lives. People are very, very quick to put their hand in that pot, right? And they want for them. And they might not be steering the 18-year-old in their right direction. And so when the 18-year-old becomes 28, all of a sudden they realize for the past decade, people have been gypping them. They haven't been paying the IRS. And boom, what happens? Now you're broke.
And that's a real thing.
And that's it. And it happens. So my biggest piece of advice is, with the Shakira thing, my instinct is she did not have the right people in her corner. And so then for you, what does that mean for us is please be mindful of who you're hiring, but also what's going on with your own books. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Biden.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about this because you actually put up a post about it. In the student debt relief plan.
Yeah.
So break that down for us.
Yeah.
But then also, I think my main question is, what does that mean for people that are currently taking out loans?
Okay, good questions. All right. So first, what is it? So President Biden announced a 3-part plan for student loan forgiveness. The first part of the plan is pretty self-explanatory. It just means that federal student loan payments and the interest rate, which is currently frozen, is currently 0. That is going to expire on December 31st, 2022. Okay. So starting January, if you have federal loans, student loans, you are going to have to start repaying your student loans. You are also going to see that interest back. Okay, on your student loans. So that's the first part of the plan. Pretty self-explanatory. Part 2 is the big one. That's debt cancellation. So President Biden acted through an executive order, which means that he does not need approval from Congress to say we are going to cancel up to $20,000 of student loans. Okay, so if you received a Pell Grant, Pell Grants have historically been given to those of very low income families. If you received a Pell Grant when you went to undergrad, you're going to get up to $20,000 of your student loans canceled. Okay. But you also need to meet the income requirements, which means you need to make less than $125,000 a year, or $250,000 if you're married. Okay. If you're like, well, Cindy, I didn't receive a Pell Grant, but I do have federal loans and I do make under that money, well, then you will receive up to $10,000 of debt forgiveness. Okay. Well, Cindy, how do I get my hands on that? Like, I'm eager. This is great, right? 8 million people will see their debt automatically canceled. So this is expected to benefit 43 million Americans. It is expected to cancel completely the debt of 20 million Americans. And 8 million people will automatically see their debt canceled because their income data, right? Like certifying that you make less than the 125, it's already with the U.S. Department of Education. And because your data is already with the U.S. Department of Education, it's canceled. But if you're like, well, Cindy, I don't know if my data is with the U.S. Department of Education, how do I get it to them? In the coming weeks, they're going to open up an application, which Biden said is simple. I hope it's truly simple. Okay. A simple form on the U.S. Department of Education's website. I want you to go to ed.gov/subscriptions, and I want you to sign up with your email address. us, okay, for to receive the updates. And you will be notified when the application is open. You're going to put in some personal information, including your income for either 2020 or 2021, because that's the income that they're going to base it off of, okay? So that's the general gist of part 2, which is the debt cancellation. Now we have part 3, and this is the one that impacts the people that are taking loans now moving forward, okay? And this, what it is that it is going to create basically a new income-driven repayment plan. So currently there is an income-driven repayment plan, which means that the monthly payments that you need to make on your student loans. Now, I also want everyone to be mindful that we are talking about federal loans. We are not talking about private loans. Private loans are not included in this discussion at all. Cancellation of private student loan debt would have to involve like Congress, like for sure. And it would have to, and that would be much, much greater, because now you're dealing with private corporations. Here we are dealing with federally held loans, which are loans that are administered through the U.S. Department of Education, which Biden has the power to tell them what to do. Okay. Right. And that's why he's telling them, all right, you're going to cancel. This is it. Exactly. Yeah. So part 3 of the plan, like I said, it creates a new type of income-driven repayment plan, which is basically going to cap the amount that you're going to have to pay on your student loans. And you know, it's going to be helpful because it's going to make the payments lower, right? But I do want people to be mindful of that if your payments are very low, please just be mindful that you might not be able to pay your debt off in 10, 15 years, depending on how much you owe, right? Like if you have $100,000 of debt and your payments are $50 a month, I mean, that's very helpful for your pocket right now. But you probably will have to have that debt for a while. Now you are fully able to decide whether that's okay with you or not. You know, you are able to make that decision. But after 20 years, your debt will get discharged. So after you making that. Now, why is it beneficial? It's because your payments are going to be lower. Right? So people that are taking out loans now, your payments would be lower. But the big thing, and this is the part that there hasn't been too much coverage on it, and I'm personally very interested to learn more, is that they're basically going to handle the government is going to handle the unpaid interest. And you see, interest is what makes paying debt off so difficult. You know, that's when you hear the stories of like, I've been paying my student loans for like 5 years and my balance has only increased. Why? Because of the interest. So these measures will hopefully curb the interest so that your balances will never go up so long as you make your monthly minimum payment. That's what the government has told us. I'm personally very interested to see what's next. I think it has the potential of making a big impact on people. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay. You know, I have to bring you back here because our conversations are long, which I love. But I don't want to leave without you discussing your book.
Oh, yeah.
So please talk to me about your book. When it's coming out and what can we find and what are we looking forward to in this book?
Yeah. So, you know, I think that maybe a lot of people that are tuning into this episode, they might finish the episode feeling a little overwhelmed, right? Because they just heard a lot. They heard a lot of terms. They heard about side hustles. They heard about budgeting, about credit, about investing, about index funds. She said something about what? What was that? I wrote this book because I want your questions answered in an easy, accessible format. All these things that we just talked about are in the book. Okay. The book starts with my personal story, my money story. You know, my story of being the daughter of immigrants from a low-income community in the Bronx to being a business owner that's debt-free and that has a multiple six-figure net worth. How did she get there? What happened, right? I share my story there. But then in the meat of the book, right, after those chapters, I share what's called the 8 pillars to build wealth. These 8 pillars that I firmly believe everyone should have knowledge on, right? The budgeting, the knowing your numbers, the debt, the credit, the investing, all of that is laid out in a very practical, easy to read. I also have examples, you know, in the book, right? Like we use examples, we use numbers because I want you to see these concepts applied. And then the book ends with a very kind of easy roadmap, like a little checklist, so that if just like once you're done reading the book, you want like a quick little summary, and it's all there. All the tools that I used in my journey, the resources, most which are free, I name them there so that you can have access to. And I wrote the book because I'll never forget what it felt like going into a bookstore and not seeing someone that looks like me.
Oh, oh my
And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
That's why.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why you do this, right?
Yeah.
And keeping that in mind, I was like, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to do something about this. I need to do something about this. I need to educate our gente. And in a small way, I'm going to do it. And man, have I poured my heart into that book over these past few months. Girl, the tears. This is probably like the 10th time I've cried this week, because it is hard and it sucks, right? It sucks going to a bookstore and seeing like, damn, like none of these writers look like me. None of these writers know the struggle. None of these writers are from the Bronx. None of these writers, they had immigrant parents. Some of these writers have trust funds. I don't even know what that is, right? Like, I wrote the book because I want 18-year-old Cindy, 25-year-old Cindy. I want my fellow friends in their early or mid 30s. I want them to have access to financial education in a very relatable, no nonsense, approachable, but also kind way. I always say you have to lead with kindness, even though you have the tough love. Lead with kindness, and people will learn. They might not implement everything you teach them right away, and that's okay. That's okay. But you've given them exposure. And now when you teach one, you teach many.
That's right.
Right? Because when one person picks up the book, they tell their girlfriend about it. They tell their little sister. They gift it to their cousin for Christmas.
That's right.
And that's when you start seeing change happen in our community. That's how generational wealth happens. That's how it happens. But it starts with saying, you know what, I'm going to take this that I know and I'm going to share it with my community. Because I don't want to be the only one who's chilling in Punta Cana 20 years from now with my pina colada in hand by myself. Because that sucks. Yeah. That's lonely. Right? We need our community with us. And I think specifically for the Latino community, something that has been very true to me is how important family and friends and community is. So how dare I keep the knowledge to myself? So my book is my love letter to my community. It is hopefully something that's going to resource people. It's going to encourage people. It's going to empower people, and overall, hopefully educate.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Like a true inspiration.
Oh, thank you.
I really do appreciate it, Cindy.
Thank you. Oh.
I'm always crying on this show. It's so
Hi, everyone. It's Cindy Zuniga Sanchez from Zero Based Budget, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. Be sure to check out my new book, Overcoming Debt, Achieving Financial Freedom, 8 Pillars to Build Wealth. And I hope you subscribe to Growing Up Latina.